Rain poured from the sky like the city itself was trying to wash away its sins. Neon signs flickered above narrow Seoul streets, their pink and blue reflections trembling in puddles along the pavement. The smell of wet asphalt mixed with street food carts shutting down for the night, spicy tteokbokki sauce lingering in the air, steam rising into the cold darkness. She ran. Barefoot. Her thin blouse clung to her skin, soaked and translucent beneath the downpour. One shoe had been lost somewhere behind her. Maybe near the subway exit. Maybe when he grabbed her arm. She didn't remember. All she knew was that she had to keep moving. Her breath came in sharp, broken gasps. Her ankle burned with every step against the rough concrete. A bruise darkened her cheek, and her lip trembled, not from the cold, but from fear. Behind her, somewhere in the maze of alleyways and parked motorbikes, a man's voice echoed. "Yeah. Stop running." The sound of his footsteps splashed through water. She didn't dare look back at first. But she did. And she saw him. His silhouette under a street lamp. His shoulders tense. His eyes scanning like a predator who had lost control of his prey. Her heart slammed against her ribs. And in that terrifying moment, if your heart is racing with hers, take 1 second to like, subscribe, and share this story. Because this night is only getting darker. No, please, she whispered to herself. She turned sharply into a side street lined with luxury apartments and high concrete walls. Black sedans and imported cars sat parked in perfect rows, their polished surfaces glowing under security lights. She darted between two vehicles, pressing her trembling body against the cold metal of a parked SUV. Her breath was too loud. Too fast. She covered her mouth with shaking fingers. Footsteps grew closer. Then paused. Silence. The rain softened for a moment, like the world was holding its breath with her. Across from her, a sleek black luxury sedan sat alone near the curb. Tinted windows. Immaculate. Expensive. Powerful. Its engine was off, but something about it felt guarded. Untouchable. She didn't think. She didn't plan. She only knew that if he found her this time, she wouldn't survive another night. Her eyes locked on the sedan. Another shout echoed behind her. She made her choice. And ran toward it. The rain struck harder now, bouncing off the polished surface of the black sedan as if trying to warn her away. Her chest heaved as she reached for the handle, expecting it to be locked, expecting fate to deny her one last chance. But it wasn't. The handle shifted under her trembling fingers. Unlocked. For a split second, she froze. Expensive cars in this part of Seoul were never left unsecured. This neighborhood belonged to executives, politicians, powerful men. Another shout echoed down the street. "Come out. I know you're here." Her blood ran cold. She didn't think again. She pulled the door open just enough to slip inside, careful not to let it slam. The scent of leather and faint cologne surrounded her instantly, clean, expensive, masculine. The interior glowed softly from dashboard lights in the front. Someone was in the driver's seat. Her heart nearly stopped. A man in a black suit sat behind the wheel, posture straight, eyes focused forward. He hadn't turned around. He hadn't noticed her. Perhaps the rain masked the sound. Perhaps he assumed it was the wind. She moved slowly, desperately, lowering herself onto the backseat floor. A long dark overcoat lay beside her. Without hesitation, she pulled it over her shaking body and curled into herself, pressing her bruised cheek against the cool leather. "Please don't see me. Please don't move. Please just let him go away." Outside, footsteps splashed through puddles. Her ex's voice came closer. "Hey! Did you see a girl run this way?" he shouted at someone unseen. The driver remained motionless. The footsteps stopped right beside the car. She could hear his breathing now. Angry. Frustrated. Too close. A hand slammed against the hood of the sedan. She flinched but didn't make a sound. Through the thin layer of fabric covering her, she heard him curse under his breath. She couldn't have gone far. Seconds stretched like hours. Rain trickled down the windows, distorting shadows into monsters. She bit her lip to keep from sobbing. Then the footsteps moved away. Further. And further still. Silence returned, broken only by the hum of distant traffic and rain sliding over glass. Her lungs finally expanded. But before relief could settle in, the engine started. Deep. Smooth. Powerful. The car began to move. And she realized she had just hidden inside a vehicle that didn't belong to her. And she had no idea whose it was. The car's interior was warm now, a stark contrast to the chill and rain outside. The hum of the engine filled the space, vibrating softly through the leather seats. She pressed herself further into the folds of the coat, holding her breath, hoping the man in the driver's seat wouldn't notice her. Every instinct screamed that she had gone from one danger straight into another, but she had no choice. The door on the driver's side clicked open. A faint hiss of rain escaping into the car punctuated the silence. She stiffened, eyes wide. A tall figure stepped inside. He moved with the precision of someone used to control, measured, deliberate, effortless. His suit was immaculate, jet black, perfectly tailored. A crisp white shirt peeked beneath the jacket, the kind of clothing that marked someone untouchable, someone in power. His shoes tapped softly on the wet floor before he settled behind the wheel. He glanced at the dashboard, then straight ahead, seemingly unaware of her presence. But she felt his gaze, or perhaps sensed it. There was something in the air that made her stomach tighten. A subtle tension, like a predator measuring the weight of a trapped animal without yet moving. The driver shifted uncomfortably under the sudden, silent scrutiny. Her heart pounded. Rain streaked the tinted windows, distorting the neon lights outside into long, abstract ribbons of pink and blue. She could hear the distant hum of the city, car horns echoing off wet alley walls. The luxurious sedan moved smoothly, gliding past empty storefronts and shuttered cafes. Then, a subtle movement, a flicker under the coat. She adjusted slightly, brushing her hair from her face, unaware that her small gesture had drawn attention. He stopped the car, hand on the gear shift, and his voice was low, controlled, and sharp. "You're there," he said simply. Her chest froze. His eyes, cold, dark, calculating, turned briefly in her direction. She wanted to disappear under the seat, to vanish into the leather and shadows. Her voice caught in her throat. The driver glanced nervously between them, realizing for the first time that the back seat was not empty. The man's lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile, though there was no warmth in it. Just power. Dominance. A promise that he had already claimed control over the situation. She could not move. She could not speak. Every instinct screamed to run, yet something in the air made her pause, fear mingled with the strange curiosity of survival. The engine purred as the car resumed its smooth glide through the rain-slick streets. Outside, the city blurred into streaks of neon, but inside, the tension was palpable, charged with danger, mystery, and an unspoken understanding. She was no longer in control. And the man behind the wheel, this untouchable, dangerous figure, had just realized she was there. Her life had taken a turn she hadn't anticipated. And nothing would ever be the same. The car rolled to a smooth stop beneath an overpass where rain drummed heavily against concrete beams overhead. The city lights flickered beyond the windshield, blurred by water and distance. Inside the sedan, silence thickened like fog. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't turn fully around. He simply spoke. "Come out." 2 words. Calm. Controlled. Inevitable. Under the coat, her body trembled. For a second, she considered pretending she wasn't there. Pretending she didn't exist. But something in his tone told her he already knew everything. Slowly, she pushed the coat aside. Her hair fell messily over her face, damp and tangled. Her bare feet pressed against the expensive leather floor mats. She avoided his eyes at first, staring instead at her shaking hands. The driver twisted in his seat, and inhaled sharply. "Sir," he muttered, startled. "I didn't know." "It's fine," the man said quietly. Now he turned. Up close, his presence was overwhelming. Sharp jawline. Impeccable suit. Eyes dark and unreadable, like still water hiding unknown depths. He didn't look angry. He didn't look surprised. He looked observant. She felt smaller under that gaze. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice cracking. "I didn't know whose car this was. I needed somewhere to hide." He said nothing. The silence made her chest tighten. Her fingers instinctively brushed her cheek, and that was when the sleeve of her blouse slipped back, revealing the deep purple bruise around her wrist. Another marked her collarbone. Faint fingerprints still visible against pale skin. The driver's expression changed immediately. Shock. Anger. Recognition. "Did someone do that to you?" the driver asked, unable to hide it. Her eyes filled with tears she had been holding back all night. "My boyfriend," she choked. "My ex. I tried to leave. He wouldn't let me." Her voice broke apart between breaths. "He said if I ever ran again, he'd make sure I never could." Rain pounded harder outside, as if echoing her words. She forced herself to look at the man in the front seat. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," she said. "I'll get out if you want. Just, not back there." For the first time, something shifted in his eyes. Not pity. Not softness. But understanding. He leaned back slightly, studying her bruises, her trembling hands, the way she kept flinching at distant sounds. The most powerful man in the city. Listening. And in that heavy, suspended silence, something unspoken began to change. The car glided through the wet city streets in silence. Neon reflections streaked across the tinted windows, painting her pale face in fleeting hues of pink and blue. She pressed her knees to her chest, still shivering, not from the cold, but from the aftershock of fear and adrenaline. Every sound outside, the honk of a distant taxi, the splash of tires through puddles, made her flinch. He hadn't spoken for minutes, and the weight of that quiet was almost unbearable. The kind of quiet that could either be calm or deadly. She thought about slipping out, apologizing, returning to the rain-soaked streets. But she didn't. She couldn't. Her limbs felt frozen, but her mind refused to leave the safety she hadn't yet earned. Finally, his voice cut through the rain, low and measured. "You're safe now." It wasn't a question. It wasn't a warning. It was a statement that carried an authority so absolute it made her stomach knot. She blinked at him, startled by the softness, the absence of anger or suspicion. His eyes, dark and piercing, softened just enough to hint at concern, though still carrying that unmistakable aura of danger. I don't," she began, voice barely above a whisper. "Don't speak," he interrupted gently. "Just stay here." Her breath hitched. She had expected confrontation. Punishment. Rejection. Instead, this. A promise. And not a vague one, he meant it. The engine purred as he leaned back, signaling the driver with a subtle nod. The car turned away from the neon-lit streets, moving toward quieter avenues, deeper into the city's hidden lanes. Soon, towering apartment complexes gave way to private mansions tucked behind high stone walls, discreet security cameras blinking like silent sentinels. She could barely comprehend it. This man, the one whose reputation made the streets whisper at his name, was protecting her. From her ex. From the danger she had been running from all night. "Why are you helping me?" Her voice trembled, finally breaking through. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied her, the way she curled into herself, soaked and exhausted, bruises still visible, the fear clinging to her like a second skin. Then, after a long pause, he said simply, "Because no one has the right to hurt you." The words sank in. Simple. Unexpected. Radical. She wanted to ask more, why him, why now, but the streets outside blurred past as the car carried them to somewhere that felt safer than anywhere she had ever been. Somewhere that belonged to him. Somewhere that could change everything. And in that quiet hum of tires against wet asphalt, a fragile thread of trust began to form between them, delicate, trembling, but unbreakable. For the first time in hours, she allowed herself to breathe. She was not out of danger yet. But for the first time, she felt protected. The rain had slowed to a mist, but the streets still glistened under flickering neon lights. In the shadows of narrow alleyways and shuttered shops, he moved like a storm unleashed. His fists were clenched, jaw tight, every nerve screaming with fury. He had lost her once, and he would not lose her again. The abusive ex's footsteps echoed through the quiet streets, sloshing in puddles. He stopped abruptly in front of a sleek black gate, flanked by towering stone pillars. Beyond it, high walls marked territory whispered about in hushed tones across the city, the domain of men who weren't to be crossed. The air carried a subtle scent of jasmine from hidden gardens, mingling oddly with the metallic tang of rain-soaked asphalt. A pair of guards stepped from the shadows, their uniforms crisp, faces unreadable behind dark sunglasses, even at night. "Stop right there," one said. His voice was calm but firm, carrying the weight of unspoken consequences. "I'm not stopping for anyone," the ex barked, stepping closer. "I want her. She's mine." "Where is she?" The guards exchanged a brief glance. One hand rested lightly on the handle of a holstered gun, not in threat, but in warning. "Sir, you're trespassing." "Leave now," the second guard warned. "This is not your business." The ex laughed, short and bitter. "Not my business? Don't test me. I don't care who you are, I will get her." His anger radiated like heat from a fire, reckless and dangerous. He pounded the gate with a fist, the sound sharp in the otherwise quiet night. Rain splashed over his bruised and soaked clothing, dripping from his hair onto the stone walkway. "If she's in there, I swear," his voice trailed into a hiss, full of menace. The guard stood firm, unmoved. Even the ex realized, for the first time, that this wasn't an ordinary boundary. He was out of his league. His fists tightened, his breathing heavy, but he refused to step back. Somewhere beyond the walls, the faint rumble of an engine stirred in the darkness. He didn't see the figure yet, the man who commanded these streets, but instinctively, he felt the eyes that would find him no matter where he ran. "Tell me where she is," the ex demanded, voice cracking with both anger and desperation. Silence stretched like a taut wire. Then, one guard spoke slowly, deliberately, each word measured. "She is not yours to take. Leave, or you will regret it." For a brief moment, the ex hesitated. Fear licked at the edges of his rage, but pride and obsession pushed him forward. He stepped closer, daring the consequences. And in that instant, it became clear, he had crossed a line that could not be undone. Somewhere in the shadows, unseen, the Mafia boss's presence loomed, calm, powerful, and absolute. The game had changed. The stakes had risen. And the ex had just awakened a force far greater than he had ever imagined. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflective under the cold glow of street lamps. Mist curled from storm drains, giving the alleyways an otherworldly haze. She watched from the safety of the sedan, heart pounding, as he, the man whose name whispered fear across the city, stepped from the shadows. The ex's chest heaved, soaked hair plastered to his forehead, fists clenching in defiance. He hadn't expected to see this man. Not here. Not now. Not like this. "You," the Mafia boss said, his voice calm, almost casual, but each syllable carried the weight of authority that made the ex flinch involuntarily. There was no hurry, no panic, only the quiet inevitability of a predator deciding its prey's fate. The ex's bravado faltered. What are you?" "You can't." The Mafia boss raised a hand, silencing him without raising his voice. His dark eyes scanned the ex, measuring, dissecting, uncovering every lie and weakness the man had tried to bury. "You've hurt her," he said softly, each word deliberate. "Threatened her life, her freedom. Do you think the streets wouldn't remember your actions? That people wouldn't talk?" The ex stumbled over his words, his anger now edged with fear. She's mine. She is under my protection now," the Mafia boss interrupted. "And I protect what is mine with everything I have. You will not touch her again." His gaze was ice, unyielding. The words landed like a hammer strike. Guards moved silently, flanking the ex. There was no sudden violence, no shouting. Yet every movement, every glance, radiated the same message: resistance was futile. His reputation, built on intimidation and violence, crumbled in seconds. The ex was pushed forward, disoriented, every onlooker in the nearby alley, shopkeepers, delivery men, even passing taxi drivers, catching glimpses of his humiliation. Whispers followed him as the guards escorted him away, his threats powerless, his dominance shattered. She stayed seated, trembling, eyes wide as relief and awe battled inside her. The man who had terrified the city, the one whose presence alone could make entire gangs rethink their loyalties, had just made her safe. Publicly. Absolutely. He turned slightly toward her, expression unreadable, voice quiet but deliberate. "This ends tonight. You don't need to fear anymore." She swallowed, unable to speak. Tears pricked her eyes, not from fear, but from the raw, overwhelming sense of safety. She had run through darkness, through danger, only to find a force stronger than her ex's rage. A force willing to confront evil directly, decisively, and without hesitation. The ex disappeared into the night, defeated and humiliated. The city would remember this night. The streets would whisper it. And she was finally free, though in ways she couldn't yet fully understand. The car door closed behind the ex, leaving only the hum of the engine, the mist, and the quiet, terrifying presence of the man who had become her protector. A chapter had ended. Another, more uncertain, but infinitely safer, was about to begin. The rain had faded into a soft drizzle, leaving the streets glistening like scattered gems under the dim city lights. The sedan glided through narrow lanes, eventually arriving at a sprawling, secluded estate hidden behind high stone walls. Lanterns flickered along the driveway, their warm glow a sharp contrast to the cold, wet streets outside. She stepped out of the car cautiously, still shivering, her bruises aching. The man, tall, composed, impossibly calm, watched her quietly as she tried to steady her breathing. He led her inside, where the scent of polished wood and faint sandalwood lingered. The space was minimalist but tasteful, every detail deliberate, controlled. Nothing wasted, nothing accidental. She started, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought you were just," her words faltered. She didn't know how to finish the sentence, how to confront the contradictions she felt: fear, awe, curiosity. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he gestured for her to sit in a soft leather chair near the fireplace. Flames flickered, casting shadows that danced across his sharp features. "I'm not what you think," he said finally, voice low and measured. "People call me dangerous. They call me ruthless. But danger is a tool. And protection is a choice." She looked at him, incredulous. "Protection?" Her lips trembled. "You help people?" He allowed a brief, almost imperceptible nod. "Women. Children. Those who have no one to defend them. I fund shelters, programs, places where they can be safe. My mother, she wasn't lucky. She suffered at the hands of men who claimed love but only brought pain. I promised myself that no one under my watch would suffer the same way." Her chest tightened. Every word chipped away at the image she had built in her mind of him as cold, unfeeling, untouchable. The bruises, the fear, the adrenaline of the night, it all collided with this revelation. Why me?" she asked softly, almost afraid of the answer. He leaned slightly forward, eyes locking with hers. Because you deserve to survive. Because sometimes the world fails, and someone has to intervene. You ran, you survived, and now I make sure nothing, or no one, can take that from you. For the first time, she saw the man differently. Not merely as a mafia boss, not merely as a figure of terror, but as someone shaped by his own pain, deliberate in his choices, and unwaveringly protective of the innocent. Outside, the drizzle continued, soft against the windows. Inside, the room was quiet but heavy with unspoken understanding. A dangerous man, yes, but one whose power could be a shield. And for the first time, she realized that her fear had found an unlikely sanctuary. Somewhere in the heart of this city, surrounded by darkness and danger, she began to see a glimpse of safety she had never thought possible. Her life had shifted irrevocably, and the man beside her was proof that even in the world's shadows, protection could exist. The morning sun filtered softly through the tall windows of the mansion, spilling golden light across polished floors. Outside, the city of Seoul stretched endlessly, alive and bustling, but here, in this secluded space behind high walls, the world felt distant, almost unreal. The rain from days before had left the streets sparkling, like scattered jewels, and a quiet calm hung in the air. She stood by the window, looking down at the quiet courtyard below. Her reflection stared back at her, and for the first time in weeks, she saw herself clearly, bruises fading, shoulders straighter, eyes no longer clouded with fear. Every breath felt deliberate, every movement steady. She was no longer running. She was no longer hiding. He appeared behind her, silent as a shadow, and she didn't flinch. His presence no longer struck fear into her chest, it brought a strange sense of security, a grounding she couldn't fully explain. He was impeccably dressed, suit sharp, tie perfect, eyes still holding that dark intensity that commanded respect, but softened now by the weight of concern. "You don't have to stay," he said quietly, voice low, deliberate. "You can leave. Go back to the streets if you wish. The choice is yours." She turned to face him, the sunlight catching the angles of his face. "I know," she said, voice calm, stronger than she felt the night she had run barefoot through the rain. "And I could leave, but I won't. Not because I'm afraid of you, not because I need protection, but because I trust you." He studied her, eyes narrowing slightly, as if weighing the truth in her words. Then, finally, he allowed the faintest hint of a smile, just enough to crack the image of the untouchable man he always presented. "Trust is earned," he said. "You've earned it." She stepped closer, feeling the subtle warmth radiating from him, the quiet strength that had shielded her from danger, from fear, from herself. It wasn't power that held her, it was his choice to wield it for protection, his willingness to stand between her and harm without asking for anything in return. The city hummed below, but here, in the quiet light of morning, she felt a rare serenity. The past, the abuse, the fear, the running, was behind her. What lay ahead was unknown, but for the first time, she was ready. Stronger. Whole. He nodded once, a silent acknowledgement of her resolve, and she met his gaze without hesitation. There was a tension there, unspoken but undeniable, a bond formed not from fear, not from control, but from mutual understanding. And as the sunlight bathed them both, she realized the truth of it. Sometimes, she murmured, almost to herself, the most dangerous man in the room is the only one who keeps you safe. He didn't reply, but the quiet agreement in his eyes said everything she needed to know. For the first time, she smiled freely, unburdened. And in that smile was the promise of a new beginning.